Arthur Conan Doyle once said, "Where there is no imagination, there is no horror." Maybe this is why the horror films that give our minds room to stretch are the ones that remain under our skin long after the credits roll. When a horror narrative is executed well, the rules and threats of its world and its villains are embedded deeply within the audience. They lurk in the back of our minds, mixing with our overstimulated imaginations and turning the adrenaline all the way up. Truly masterful horror films create such a strong atmosphere that they're just as scary even when the threat is off screen. Alien's motion tracker is such an ingenious idea that the best horror game of the 2010s is based entirely around it. The motion tracker puts the film's characters in the same emotional state that we ourselves occupy when we watch a horror film, aware of impeding danger but unable to do anything more than feel it approach and wait for it to jump out. 1987's Predator might not be scary in the same way that Alien is, but the way that the off-screen threat is sustained is second to none. Alan Silvestri's pounding, brass-heavy score keeps us constantly alert, especially when paired with the film's perfect sound design. Eerie clicks and growls echo through the canopy, whilst we desperately scan the foliage for those glowing yellow eyes. Where we normally feel comfort and reassurance seeing ultra-macho 80s action heroes that can solve any problem or kill any monster, instead we see this. The Predator's infrared vision simultaneously establishes that the creature is always within attacking distance of our heroes, and that, to it, iconic 80s beefcakes like Arnie or Carl Weathers are reduced to nothing more than a heat signature. There's a big difference between the rippling muscle that we see and the vulnerable flesh that the Predator does. Sustaining the presence of a threat without fully revealing it is a delicate balance, but one that is essential to maintain, at least until the third act, where all hell can break loose. Some films are able to find the majority of their horror within the themes and environment we explore when the antagonist isn't even present. Excellent Skarsgård performance aside, the thing I found scariest in 2017's It was the town of Derry itself. The sleazy, vacant and aggressive attitude of the town's adults create the perfect setting for Pennywise to loom large. In a movie filled to the brim with monsters and jump scares, it's the spectrum of cloying and abusive parenting that really chilled me. The unnatural combination of coming-of-age nostalgia with the sickness running through Derry's heart is, for me, more memorable than any of the spooky ghouls that Pennywise shifts into. I find myself feeling similarly about the relentless paranoia of The Thing, or the growing mob mentality and religious fanaticism of Frank Darabont's The Mist. These are social constructs, and yet they instill dread, shock, and horror as effectively as any monster. Folk horror is surely one of the greatest perpetrators of off-screen thematic threat. Films like Apostle, The Wicker Man, and Midsommar rely heavily on sheer social unease to great effect. The Wicker Man setting of Summer Isle, a pagan-worshipping, cultist-infected, incredibly horny island off the coast of Scotland, feels nearly as foreign to us as Alien's Nostromo, all through the deep sense of unwelcomeness and otherness that its inhabitants perpetrate. The settings of some horror films can outstrip the fear factor of the villains that occupy them. 2007's 30 Days of Night and 2020's Underwater are both fairly formulaic by the book's horror narratives, but their settings shine through as truly terrifying. Vampire Danny Houston and Bargain Bin Cthulhu were never going to be as scary as an Alaskan town plunged into total darkness for a month, or a deep-sea drilling station beginning to fall apart. Neil Marshall's The Descent is another good example of this. The crawlers are effective villains, sure, but are they really scarier than an unmapped claustrophobic cave system deep under the Appalachian Mountains? Not for me. To quote Friedrich Nietzsche, "If you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you." What happens then when horror films present us with an abyss and force us to hold its gaze? I am of course talking about negative space, meaning everything in the frame that is not the immediate subject of focus. Traditionally intended to give the eyes a place to rest, some horror films make their best effort to use the space in the exact opposite way. Osgood Perkins' Long Legs was widely recognised as one of the scariest horror films released this year, and a huge part of this is down to the way it was shot and its use of negative space. Our eyes are drawn to open doorways and huge windows behind Agent Harker, our senses heightened at the potential threats that may be lurking there. Ari Aster does something similar in 2018's Hereditary. Shots go on for long enough that our eyes begin to scour the negative space, and in this film, they will occasionally spot something horrifying. The audience then sits, immersed in dread, until the shot finally cuts and we can all collectively take a breath. Mike Flanagan also experiments with negative space in both his Hill House and Blind Manor Netflix series.
I told Mars you'd be pretty. How perfectly splendid.
The amount of hidden ghosts planted in the background of his scenes simultaneously reward the wandering eye, whilst heightening the threat and oppressively high spook count of these stately homes. As somebody who watches a lot of horror films, it's easy to sometimes feel desensitized to large swathes of the genre, but it's these creative filmmakers sustaining threat, embedding themes, and filling their backgrounds with hidden ghosts that cut through the crowd. I hope to see more horror films playing with these elements as the genre continues to innovate, guaranteeing that even a film addict such as myself can never truly feel safe when they see a new title card pop up on screen. Thank you so much for watching, and have a happy Halloween. Just as a side note to finish on, I wanted to say thank you so much for the amazing support on my last video. I was so excited to see it perform as well as it did, and appreciated every single subscription, like, and comment. Also, a massive thank you to @BonnieRose9532, who commented the ideas and topic that then rapidly evolved into this video. I feel honoured that people would share their ideas and trust me to turn them into something worthwhile. Please feel free to subscribe, like, and comment any suggestions for what I do next. I might just have a few ideas in the works already. Thanks.